Do we have a song? Open up.
That's one way to open up.
Good enough, so good?
That's good job.
He's talking. I think you have a song today. This was a song that we wrote for Buddha Master a few months ago. And it expresses, it's like our testimony, it expresses how we feel about Buddha Master and how the teachings strike us and how the teachings inform us in a certain way. So, sometimes a personality can get so big that the teachings get obscured. So I'm going to give you a discourse today on the lifespan of a Buddha and why Buddhas leave the world. And it'll be taken from the Lotus Sutra. But I have an announcement to make, and then we'll go straight into the Dharma. Talk is going to be pretty short today because I don't want to add too many Panavati words. I'm ready. So if you have the, and maybe you can come since you're singing. I mean, the rest of them helping him, but.
When I pray to His Holiness, Untitled Chapter in the better. When I'm living without hope, when I'm living without hope, when my heart is hurt and my mind can't beat, He's calling me, calling me. When I'm living on the ropes, when I'm living on the ropes, going down I see the Buddha light saving me, saving me. My fear illusions in the human world, they're my attachments to impermanence. When all thoughts subside, my false body and mind become liberated, I realize, oh, the Buddha's calling me, calling me.
Freedom, death, and rebirth, the joy to be received.
When my mind has no end, how could it be muddy?
Our formless nature cannot be sullied.
When mind's not placed on any one point, it's the end of suffering.
We pay homage to His Holiness Untitled Chapter III, due to the Buddha's infinite forbearance and great compassion. We have found the supreme teachings for attaining liberation, despite people from all over the world flocking to pay homage. Untitled Chapter Buddha III does not forsake helping living beings attain liberation.
If you want to be free from sincere suffering, let go of ignorance of knowledge and listen to the Buddha. Calling to the calling, 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 calling.
So that's the joy one finds when they find a true Dharma, because it transforms you from the inside out. And it's bigger than any personality. It's bigger than one's own personality. That's why there is the power, the magnanimous power, to uproot our self-centeredness, our selfishness, our greed, our hatred, our delusion. So when one is on this path, they're on the path of the Buddhas, and their goal is to attain Buddhahood. And in attaining Buddhahood, it is to get off the samsaric rounds of existence. So we should know why we study and why we practice. It's not to like rely on the completed work of others, but to do that same work, because that's the only way that one arrives at the place of personal, of individual liberation, is that they have to do the work. They just can't, they don't have a pass. They say, Jesus sent me or Buddha sent me. They have to do the work. One time, the disciples came to Jesus and said, your brothers and sisters are. And he said, who's my brothers and sisters? Those who do the work of my Father. They're my brothers and sisters. So he wasn't talking about his earthly, his human father. He was speaking, he was letting us know that there's something more than this world and its suffering, although there is this world and its suffering. So when we talk about the illusory nature of existence, we're not saying that we're not real, that I'm not talking to y'all and that I'm not sitting here speaking. You know, so we're not saying that at all. We're just simply saying that we don't understand how it really is. And so we grasp and cling to that which is lowly and gross, instead of reaching for that which is the ultimate, that which truly gives life, and that which is life itself. I love the songs when they sing about the love of God and so forth, but I like the ones when they say that God is love itself. And there's a difference if you can understand it. It's a different quality. It's a completeness. It's a fullness. And so in this, what we call practice, I think we have lost something, because we speak of it as a practice. It's something we do, but it's not a practice. That it is like becoming that which we speak of. And that's where the life part comes into it. So I was invited to give a talk, sometime it's coming up, on engaged Buddhism, you know. And of course, once you do something and the world notices it, it might be the thing that they are about or they wish they were about, then you get typecast. So that's who you are. You're the engaged Buddhist nun, you know. So I said, you know, I'm focusing on the Dharma for those who have ears to hear right now. Not a new Dharma, not a different Dharma, but a higher Dharma, as Sandra would call it, high Dharma. but a higher Dharma, one that goes beyond one's sense of oneself and one's personal liberation, to self and others are equal. I mean, to just get to self and others are equal. I mean, that's a giant leap. That would be a giant leap for mankind. That would be a giant leap for Panyawadi. What about you? I mean, we have to acknowledge. Am I on?
Sorry. That's for those who can't hear well
In the Dharma hall. So there is a difference in the quality and the quantity, you know, but don't focus so much on quantity, because we're big on quantity. Bigger is better, you know, but it's the quality, you know, of the characteristics, of the attributes of the expression that tells the real deal. When I speak of quantity, I'm speaking of the dunamis, the power in it as well, that makes the difference between whether we are mediocre in our offering or whether we are magnanimous in our offering. And so if we keep thinking of it as practice and something that we do, the we does not ever get out of the way. And not only that, you know, practice is practice, but at some point you want to get out and play in the real game. You know, you want to be the difference between the local football hero and the NFLer. You know, it's a big difference in all kinds of ways, from fortune, you know, from fortune and fame, prowess. I watched a scientific documentary on I forget, one of those basketball players, big one. I should know, but I'm just not into the basketball thing. But they were like charting, like when he goes to leap, to put and the trajectory, and not that it defied gravity, but in some kind of way that he moved, that gravity was used to help him. I think it was Michael Jordan, and was talking about this leap and how the ordinary person just could not even do it. So like you could practice forever, but you won't get that leap. There has to be the right conditions for it. So I say to you, that's why we can't judge people, because we don't know their karma. We don't know what they have the capacity to hold, to step into. Although all of us do have the intrinsic Buddha nature, we don't know what is ripening. We don't know what time it is for them in their life. And so if we waste our time with that, we will lose the precious moments that we could spend and we could use in developing ourselves. So I would like to read something from the Novenas that we do. We used to do them every day. We did them every day for how long?
Every day for I think 9 days, and then every week for 9 weeks, and then we do it
Every month.
Well, a little more frequently recently.
Yeah, because things getting bad out there. And so there's something that it said that we recite near the end of the novena. It says, "Thus have I heard on one occasion, the Sublime One was living at Savatthi at Jettis Grove in the park of Anathapindika. The Sublime One addressed bhikkhus thus: 'Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir,' they replied. And he said, 'Bhikkhus, whether the Tathagatas appear or do not appear, there is this established element of Dharma, this fixed law of Dharma. All that is conditioned is impermanent. A Tathagata fully awakens to this. He fully understands it. So awakened and thus understanding, he announces it, he points it out, he declares it, he establishes it, he expounds it, he explains it, and he clarifies it. All that is conditioned is impermanent, because whether Tathagatas appear or do not appear, there is this established condition of Dharma. All that is conditioned is dukkha, unsatisfactory. A Tathagata fully awakens to this, fully understands it, and so awakened and thus understanding, he announces, points out, declares, he establishes, expounds, explains, and he clarifies it. All that is conditioned is unsatisfactory. Bhikkhus, whether Tathagatas appear or do not appear, there is this established condition of Dharma, this fixed law of Dharma. All Dharmas are without a self. A Tathagata fully awakens to this, fully understands it, and so awakened and understanding, he announces it, points it out, declares it, establishes it, expounds it, explains it, and he clarifies it. And delighted, those bhikkhus rejoiced in what the Sublime One had said. So I'm rejoicing in what the Sublime One said. And here they're speaking of Shakyamuni Buddha. And we know that all Buddhas have one mind. So when we talk about all of us being the same and all of us having one mind, like, no, we don't. But all Buddhas do have one mind, that one perfect mind. All else is in some form of degradation, some form of error, some form of insufficiency. But once one has come into the fullness, to the completeness. I was talking with Dan Harris this past week, and we did an interview. It'll air at some point in time. And let me see what I can say. Well, it wasn't Dan, but it's his we call them handlers. It's the ones who make sure everything work out right for him, for his program, right? And so when they were interviewing me, and I had the first interview, and it's usually just an interview, but I had to have 2 interviews. Because he got this like, I'm just loving this conversation, but you know, he's got to control the conversation. I mean, like, it's his show. He's got it, you know, and it's my job to make sure that happens. It's my job to make sure that that he's not stumped by something you throw out or whatever, you know. So that they can be, you know, just a nice flow and come to. I said I get all of that, but I don't know how that's possible. You know, I mean, you know, if we're talking about living in the moment, if we're talking about, you know, I mean, some of the very basic Dharma things we talk about, but yet we feel like we need to do all of this planning, all of this protecting of the ego, all this. So inquiry, true inquiry, is difficult for it to come forward because we have our whole set of rules and we've already decided what is what. And you know, if something comes up in the conversation that's a little different than that, we don't know what to do with it unless there's some notes in the back of the book to say if somebody says this, you can say that. And so I said, you know, I think Dan can handle this. You know, this is his show, right? And came around with the big dog, stay on the porch. So I think he can. He you know, he'll be able to handle it. He said, just but you say things that are not like what's ordinarily said. I said, but they're statements of truth. Do you disagree with anything that I've said? He said, no, I don't, but just never heard it. Just never heard it that way. And we were talking about metta, and you know, he was saying the way to increase one's metta is to recite may I be, you know, happy, and may you be, and may they be, and all of that. I'm like yeah, that goes, but that only goes this far. You know, there's something you got to do along with that reciting. You know, and so the thing is that most people got the recitation down. They can even sing the Metta Sutta, you know, but at that moment when somebody is confronting you or affronting you or maligning your name or you know, what can you do then? Where's the Metta Sutta that's imprinted in your heart? You know, can it arise? Can it be there? Can it at that moment? You know, that's what the true practice of metta is. You know, if it wasn't, we wouldn't have so much trouble in paradise. We wouldn't have gone through this whole decade of issues within our sanghas, even having to bring consultants in to help us with something as simple as blacks and whites getting along in the sangha to listen to the Dharma. I'm like, what? We got to call in professionals? Didn't the Buddha have any wisdom at all? Didn't he tell us what to do? It's just a matter like, are we willing to do it? If we're not, then we're going to get what we have, you know. And so this is what I have to think about and see where we can go with this. So I told someone that this doesn't look good. I don't think we go much further. And like, that's okay with me, but I don't think I'm going to be able to give him, you know, what he wants to have a successful interview. And lo and behold, we get a call back, and I think we started this in September. I had to think a long time. Got a call back, and then we did, and we had a delightful conversation. And it's really funny because they wanted to talk about the 5 this, the 4 that, you know. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do the best I can do with that guy. But if I vector off a little bit, you know, just roll with me. And and right away, before we even started, he said, I heard this story about you when you were a Christian. You had this experience. Could you say something about that? Oh, what did he say that for? And then we went into this talk, you know, and I mean, I think he actually got charged up, you know. I mean, matter of fact, I know he did, because the whole thing was derailed. It was lost cause after that point, you know. And so we were halfway through the interview, and so a 45-minute interview, but I think we went an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. We're gonna have to sift that down. I hope you left some of the good parts in. But he said, we got to a certain point. He says, so now, you know, and this is halfway into the interview, we could talk about some pragmatic aspects. I said, pragmatic? it gets no more pragmatic than this. All of this empty theories, that's not pragmatism. Being pragmatic is how you can actually access it, actually use it in your life. So that when you're too high, it can bring you down. When you're too low, it can bring you up. When your vision is cloudy, it can clarify. And when you're too literal, too strict, too legalistic, it can like blur the edges for you and expand you. That's the purpose of it, is to correct what's wrong in the understanding, to turn the cup that's upside down right side up, to patch up the cup that's filled with holes so that it can contain the Dharma. And so I said, so the whole conversation we've been having was pragmatic. These are real experiences, ones that I have, ones that you can have, ones that anybody else can have. How much more pragmatic can you get than to have direct experiences? I guess you're right about that. We continued our conversation, and it was a lovely, lovely conversation, and I'm glad that we had it. So I want to share something with you today that some of you know, maybe not all of you know, and I hope I made them. And I'm reading almost verbatim from this announcement from Buddha Master's office. On January 1st, 2022, His Holiness Dorje Chang Buddha III imparted the Dharma for living beings in his Vajra Mandala in Las Vegas. It was also called "Greed is the foremost culprit in destroying one's realization." Greed is the foremost culprit in destroying one's realization. On the evening of January 4th, his Buddha Master summoned 4 types of disciples. Now, the Buddha speaks of there are 7 types of disciples. So the 4 that he summoned would be the highest 4. If you don't know what the 4 are, you can find it in the Majjhima Nikaya. Starts with the faith follower and goes on to the one who's been liberated in both ways. And you can find out where you are if you don't know. I think it's sutta number, what is it? It's something, sutta number 70. Somebody grabs the Majjhima Nikaya and lets me have it. I will let you know at the end, because it might do you good to read this sutta on the 7 kinds of disciples. And it's in the 70s. It might be 70. So I'll let you look at the 70s and figure out which one it is. On the evening of January 4th, Buddha Master summoned 4 types of disciples and told them, now being the Dharma ending age, living beings' dark karmic forces are too heavy and they're getting worse. Fomu, who is his wife, and she has like an intercessory prayer, intercessory ministry. She's like a Mahasattva. So she lifts the heaviness off, clears the air, and takes on karma for people. Buddha Master empowers, she relieves, and that was their each individual work. On the evening, he summoned 4 types of disciples and told them, now, being the Dharma ending era, living beings' dark karmic forces are too heavy and getting worse. Fomu cannot bear them on her own. This time, I'm going to bear the dark karma together with Fomu for living beings. Therefore, starting tomorrow, I will go into seclusion to perform Dharma. During this period, I will no longer see you. As long as each of you cultivate yourself in accordance with the Dharma, you will attain liberation. So this, I will go into seclusion to perform Dharma. That's not the same as going into meditating into samadhi or dhyana. It is where one is doing a work. They're actively working in their meditation. And this particular Dharma was taking on the karma of people in the world. After some days, when disciple Saimong rushed to Las Vegas to see if Buddha Master was well, a Buddha Master said to him, Saimong, in the Dharma ending age, the dark karmic forces of living beings are too heavy. When I said I would bear dark karma for living beings, those were not merely empty words. To bear dark karma is not to enter dhyana, but rather truly and continually practice shifting the mind consciousness to suffer on behalf of living beings. In other words, to take on their karma so that they could get a second chance. They could be free. What FOMO and I said is what we do. At all times, we think about bringing auspiciousness and serenity, happiness, and peace to all living beings and to the world, to the extent of giving our all and even giving our lives. I've already brought true Buddha Dharma to this world. Everyone who practices in accordance with the supreme and unsurpassable Mahamudra of liberation and imparting the absolute truth through the Heart Sutra will surely attain liberation. That is all. I wish all living beings happiness. Then he gave private instructions to Dharma King Jinpa and Dharma King Mohat. After almost a month of bearing dark karma for living beings, Buddha Master and Fomu, the Holy Mother of Great Mahasattva, looked very sick. In the past decades, His Holiness had often borne dark karma for living beings, sometimes for a month or two, during which time he looked seriously ill. The photograph that I have up here was taken a day apart. The timestamp was on the photograph, and my master Zazi was present for this one. And so as he interceded, he took on the sicknesses of the people. He took on the karmic repercussions of the people, and he began to age while he was doing the Dharma. And when he finished performing that Dharma, then did you find it?
In the Medina?
It's in the Virginia. You can let me have it. I can find it quicker. And when, thanks. And when he finished performing it, then he went and he performed another Dharma for himself. and he brought, and the next morning he looked like that. He did a really good one. He was even younger than he was. And then he went back and he gradually, over a few weeks, went back to his normal aging. But what he was trying to show them was the scientific nature of the Dharma, that it's not empty theories, that it's real, but you got to be real to be able to access its authority in that way, its power in that way. And to understand something about those who we love and say we want to be like, do you really want to be like them? You know, I think we've just kicked the whole, as Christians, we've kicked the whole Jesus message to the curb. You know, we've gone in another direction. But this call, the true Dharma, not the be happy Dharma of the West, you know, how to be happy with your things and how to have more joy in your life. That's okay on a certain level, because you should know that there is a joy in this walk, you know, but there will come a time when the joy won't be because you have more things or you feel better yourself, but because you know that you're truly impacting the world and that you're releasing the suffering of the world, and that your arms are strong enough that you can take it on. And some of us have made that commitment that we are expanding our compassion and expanding our love in a certain way. And so he said, that's all I wish. I wish all living beings happiness. It says that the disciples were, close disciples had gotten used to him doing these kinds of dharmas because, I mean, they'd seen it many, many times. And so he had often borne dark karma for living beings, sometimes for a month, sometimes 2 months, and during which he would look seriously ill. And once he had completed that particular deed of bearing that karma, he would immediately be full of energy as usual and be strong and healthy without any sickness returning to his normal appearance or even sometimes more youthful appearance. And that's why they weren't worried. However, this time, Buddha Master and Mother Fomu did give their lives. In the supreme and unsurpassable Mahamudra of liberation, Buddha Master has made the biggest and the highest vow in the entire Dharma realm. I bear all the sinful karma for living beings. I give living beings all of the good karma and merit that I have planted. Around January 27th, Buddha Master actualized his greatest and holiest vow. He sacrificed his life to save the lives of numerous beings. And so when I said I had to go out to California at the beginning of the week or on Monday, it was some of us were called out to have a ceremony for and to see Buddha Master one last time. Now, I would have to say, of all the people that I love in the world, and there's different kinds of love, but that I honor, that I respect, that I believe was truly a living Buddha. Akacha, what's his name? Vajragata. Vajragata went to see the Buddha. He said, are you the only one who can become a Buddha? Buddha said, no. He said, you got any others? He said, yes. I have 500 monks, 500 male, 500 female monks. I have 500 lay people, 500 right here, who have attained. And Vajragata said, good, then I'm gonna join your group, because if it was only you, I wouldn't be interested, And so we get this idea that he was the only one, but he spoke of 5 before him, just within his family group. And we talk about the 31 planes of existence, and then we talk about getting off of the wheel of conditioned existence, and that's the pure land. That's the Buddha land. We can't describe it. We got to be a Buddha to understand it. But it's just to know that you can see some things in the natural, and you can understand that. For anybody who stayed at Harvard knows that we have ghosts. Okay, so now if you've never encountered ghosts before, I can get your skepticism. All you gotta do is come stay here for a couple of nights, and you'll know that they're a ghost. And you can see the difference in the Peta realm, or the ghost realm, hungry ghost realm, and the human realm. Different body, different composition, different energy, different, everything's different. You can see it with the human realm and the animal realm, different, and maybe not so much in composition, because we're both made of earth, air, fire, water in space, but there's a difference in the capacity, the opportunity to have a certain kind of freedom in your life, freedom to think, freedom to grow, freedom to advance in compassion, even freedom of mobility. You could drive a car somewhere. You don't have to run on all fours. You could, you don't have to wait for somebody to give you food or go tear something alive and eat it. So there's a degree of refinement as we move into the different realms. There are different realms. It's not just humans and our pets. There are different realms, and they have different qualities, and they have different capacities. And in the same token, that we can feel dark energy. We can always feel like, ooh, there's something feels negative here. And we don't tap in that much to that which feels positive though. You know, if our mind's gonna go somewhere, it's gonna go to the dark side. But that's just due to our not understanding reality and seeing and the fear that we have in us because of our ignorance and self-centeredness. But as that starts to leave, then one starts to become aware of other beings. And so we have terrestrials, we have plant and tree spirits, we have and then we have beings who abide in the heavenlies. And for those of you who think that the Christian devil is in hell, they said no, he's the prince of the power of the air. I'm like, he's floating around in the air, whispering something in your ear. Him and his minions whispering something. You know what I'm saying? The thought came, but where did it come from? Either your thought or it came to you from somewhere, you know? And so because we're not having not only educated, but investigated the truth of these things, we're like, oh, I don't believe that. Oh, I don't believe that. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, though, does it? It's a matter of whether it's real or not. And so he says that these teachers come to lead you and guide you into all reality. Now that's in the Bible too. He didn't just say only Jesus' completed works. He said, but so that you know them, so that you recognize them, and realize that you too can do those same works, these and even greater works than this. So I'm looking at all this powerlessness in spiritual life, you know, and I know that we're like just in the kindergarten, you know, maybe not in the kindergarten books, but we're in the kindergarten practices, you know, so that we don't realize and are not able to fully walk in what's available. And like I say, this has a lot to do with our willingness, our interest, but it also has a lot to do with who our teacher is, who and what they teach, you know. And so if we've all decided we can teach this because this is safe, nobody's offended, nobody will sue me, nobody will, you know, all of these kinds of things, you know how we're organized in the Buddhist world. I'm not telling anything but the truth. You know, we got to see if our insurance, our therapy insurance covers, you know, we know certain words we can't use, you know, we're so full of euphemisms that people can't get well. It's like when people have a cold, you could give them some over-the-counter medication, but if they got pneumonia, they need some real medicine, you know. And so there's been a dearth and a lack of the real medicine because it's not popular, because you don't think you can build a sangha with it, because, you know, because people don't want it, you know. So I'm just looking for the people who do. Looking for the people who do know. And to know that it's available. And for a long time, I wasn't committed to it. I was committed to a certain level. I mean, I'm not, I'm just gonna be honest. I recognize work that I have done, you know, so I'm not gonna give you a false modesty thing. I recognize the work I have done. But if you compare yourself to other people who also don't have it, what's the point? But when I compare it to the message of the Buddhas, to the teachings of the Buddhas, then I can see, you know, how lacking I have been in my motivation, in my conviction, in my practice, you know, in my walking out what I said I believed and what I said I wanted to enter into. Run for a little while and slow down, get a little tired, get a little weary, you know, step back, and before you know it, you've lost something. Not having gone all the way. It's only when you go all the way that there can be no loss. Up until that point, one can fall back. You know how you start living right for like 2 years of your life, and then, I don't know, something happens, and then you start going the other way for 3 years of your life, and then you say, like, I'm going back home, you know, I'm getting myself together. Then you go back to your good side, you know, and that's what I used to do when I wanted to be bad. I just left the church and I was bad. And then when I decided, you know, like this is too much suffering, I come back to church, I could be good. I could be better than all the rest. I could be better than all the rest when I put my mind to it, when I was really focused, when it was something I really wanted, you know. But then the good fortune would come, the blessings would come, and that would be so good that I started looking at the blessings, you know, a wonderful person in my life, a new home or this or that. And then I got to take care of that now, right? So I didn't have quite as much time for that. I'm focused over here. And that's how we ping pong back and forth. Before we know it, our life is over. And this time is gone. And then there's an arising where we don't know. We don't know in what realm. We don't know in what world. Because we don't know what fruit is flowering. We don't know what repercussions are coming to fruition. And so we find ourselves where we find ourselves with the family that we find ourselves with, you know, with the siblings. And we say blood is thicker than water, blood is blood. And so we have these false notions and false understandings about something. And so Buddha's come into the world to straighten out the understanding. As the Buddha said when he awakened, he said, I might as well just leave here. There's no point. No, there's nobody who can understand this. And then the Devas came and they said, but you should try to share it anyway. Because there might be a few people who only have a little dust in their eyes. And so he dedicated his life to those people who only had a little dust in their eyes. And then other people came and they said, look, we like the sound of this. We're not ready for all of it, but we want to do good too, you know. And he said, okay, well, y'all just keep these 5 rules right here. Just don't kill anything, don't take what's not given, you know, don't lie, don't keep a close watch on your appetites, you know. Be careful what you see and what you hear, what you taste, what you touch, what you smell, and be careful what you think, those 6 things, you know, and don't go around getting drunk because your mind's already messed up. So don't, you know, and so that's, he said, and then you'll be all right. And the time will come when, you know, if you just do those things, you're planting seeds and you're watering seeds already planted that's going to sprout, and you will then reap the causes. You're forming the causes that will produce the condition of you being ready for some of the other teachings. So he had teachings from people all the way from not good to all the way very good with just a little dust in their eyes. Those who are fully rooted with happiness right here, you know, and now onto the ultimate happiness, the kind that the world doesn't give. And the world can't take it away. And so I'm going to give you that sutra right quick. Sutra number 70. It's called Kitagiri. And in it, he talks about the 7 kinds of one liberated in both ways, one liberated by wisdom alone, the body witness, one attained to few, one liberated by faith, the Dharma follower and faith follower. I tell you, if you get this book and you really devote yourself to studying this book, it'll answer just about every question you have. You don't have to call me, you don't even have to Google. You'll know where to find something. And these things will like just be in you and they'll just start popping, percolating, you know. And when a question comes to your mind, that's your own ordinary, unenlightened mind, ask a question, then the teacher has left the instructions and and it'll like toggle your mind. And then you go and you pull up that sutta that, because you've gotten familiar with it, and you'll start to read. And then suddenly you're not just reading the lines, you're reading between the lines, because the wisdom co-arises with the desire as one really puts it into their hearts. And so, so I'd like to close out with, we chanted the Lotus Sutra, and it's pretty long. It takes hours. I'm not sure we chanted the whole Lotus Sutra. I think we chanted maybe a few chapters, because they had something like 20 chapters. I mean, it's long. And on one hand, it was delightful as we sat there, Soma and I, and it had the pinyin, so we could chant along, like no, hey la don't la, yay, no. Like, so that was really great. But they also, for us, had the English. And so sometimes, I would just listen, I would chant along, but sometimes I would read the English. Better to have a few words in English that you can understand. Right? And I was so caught up in the speech, of this, that it completely removed any vestiges of sadness. And I have to say that there was some shock, because, but then we started, when I got together those, I think eight of us or 9 of us went out to study the Supreme, the Heart Sutra, that, and as we sat there reading to each other, everything just became so alive, and it was like, not like sounds true, but rings true. There was an actual quickening in us, a reverberation. You can see the effect that it had on us when we came back. We got focused, and I mean, we got focused, and we started clearing out all clutter, and the Buddha Master gave us a chart. He said, all of you sitting here will be Dharma masters. Now, we have our certificate programs. Everybody got them because that's the Western way, but I mean, it doesn't count in it. That's not the way. The way is that we actually have to penetrate the need and have the capacity to live it. And to the extent we do, then that's our attainment, that's our advancement. The Buddha talked about four levels of disciples in higher training. And one would be the once return, one not return to samsara more than 7 times, the once returner, the non-returner, and the arhat. And the arhat has personal liberation, but the arhat is not a Buddha. Arhat has personal liberation, but for one who has the capacity to help liberate others, then that's the perfectly enlightened Buddhist. And that's what we're doing. We are morphing, changing lineages. So stepping out of the race of humankind, ordinary humankind, into the lineage of the awakening. And while we're here, we do what we can for the world. It's more than just teaching Dharma. Do you think Buddha Sakyamuni, I'm talking about, only taught Dharma? He only just went around giving Dharma discourse, that he didn't counsel people how to straighten out their lives more than just through the Dharma talk. I mean, he was going everywhere. He even went and prevented wars because they were always fighting. You know, and he would go down there to the battlefield, stand in the middle of the battlefield between two warring factions. And could you do that? If so, like I think Biden needs you right now.
Yeah.
I'm not playing. You know, I mean, if we really think at it and we think like we're so holy and we're so spiritual, we got to get clear of what this is. And people may never see it from you. That's the thing. It's not what we do that people see, you know, but it is what's truly done to a high degree, to a high. And that's where there's change. I mean, people who are doing evil in the world, they do it to a high degree because they believe that what they do can win. They believe that it has more power. But people who are good, we like do it to a low degree because we don't have as much confidence in the power of goodness as wicked people do in the power of bad. I mean, it's just the truth. You know, so we are afraid. You know, we're like complacent. We're we think we're doing so much. And we just have a low level of understanding, and the world cannot improve with us having that kind of mind. So the other song that we wrote said, walking in this Dharma stream, I believe in you. I believe in you. Waking up from the stream. In other words, coming out of our delusion. I believe in you. I believe in you. And we say, give me a way to live. Give me a way to breathe. Give me a way to love. No more
Feeding the illusion
of a solid, separate me. Bodhisattvas guiding my way. So I see things different. And so, and then it ends with, what is that? That's the awakening. And so, and this is only going to take 5 minutes to read, and I'm going to close out. Thus, since I attained Buddhahood, an extremely long period of time has passed. My lifespan is an immeasurable number of asamya kalpas, and during that time, I have constantly abided here without ever entering extinction. You know, so we think like the Buddha is gone, like out, just no longer exists. But he said that's a nihilism. He said that's not what I teach. So if that's your idea, then you've missed something. You see what I'm saying? You have to go back and read it. Good men, originally I practiced the Bodhisattva way. And the lifespan that I acquired then has yet to come to an end, but will last twice the number of years that have already passed. Now, however, although in fact I do not actually enter extinction, I announce that I'm going to adopt the course of extinction. This is an expedient means which the thus come ones use to teach and convert living beings. Why do I do this? Because if the Buddha remains in the world for a long time, those persons with shallow virtue will fail to plant good roots. But living in poverty and lowliness, we're talking about poverty of understanding, poverty of spirit, poverty of love, lowliness of consciousness, will become attached to the 5 desires. So if you attach to the 5 desires, you're in poverty and lowliness. I guess making it plain for us, right? Will become attached to the 5 desires and be caught in the net of deluded thoughts and imaginings. If they see that the thus come one is constantly in the world, he's always trying to think of ways to say something without using a personal pronoun like he, because he wanted to clearly carve out a distinction between the one who has awakened and the one who is ordinary. So he called things like that, the photographer, and thus come one, is constantly in the world. If they see that the thus come one is constantly in the world and never enters extinction, they will grow arrogant and selfish or become discouraged and neglectful. They will fail to realize how difficult it is to encounter a Buddha and will not approach him with a respectful and reverent mind. Therefore, as an expedient means, the thus come one says, monks, you should know that it is a rare thing to live in a time when one of the Buddhas appears in the world. Why does he do this? Because persons of shallow virtue may pass immeasurable hundreds, thousands, 10,000, millions of kalpas, with some of them chancing to see a Buddha and others never seeing one at all. For this reason, I say to them, monks, the thus come one is hard to get to see. When living beings hear these words, they are certain to realize how difficult it is to encounter a Buddha. In their minds, they will harbor a longing and will thirst to gaze upon a Buddha, and they will work to plant good roots. Therefore, the thus come one, though in truth he does not enter extinction, speaks of passing into extinction. Good men, the Buddhas and thus come ones all preach a law such as this. They act in order to save living beings. So what they do is true and not false. Suppose, for example, there's a skilled physician who's wise and understanding, and he knows how to compound medicines to effectively cure all kinds of diseases. He has many sons, perhaps 10, 20, or even 100. He goes off to some other land far away to see about a certain affair. After he is gone, the children drink some kind of poison that makes them distraught with pain, and they fall writhing to the ground. At that time, the father returns to his home and finds that his children have drunk poison. Some are completely out of their minds, others are not. Seeing their father from afar off, they are overjoyed and kneel down and entreat him, saying, how fine that you have returned safely. We were stupid and by mistake drank some poison. We beg you to cure us and let us live out our lives. The father, seeing his children suffering like this, follows various prescriptions, gathering fine medicinal herbs that meet all the requirements of color, fragrance, flavor. He grinds, sifts, and mixes them together. And giving a dose of these to his children, he tells them, this is a highly effective medicine, meeting all the requirements of color, fragrance, and flavor. Take it, you will quickly be relieved of your suffering and will be free of all illness. Those children who have not lost their senses can see that this is good medicine, outstanding. And so they take it immediately and are completely cured. Those who are out of their minds are equally desired to see their father return and beg him to cure their sickness. But when they are given medicine, they refuse to take it. Why? Because the poison is penetrated deeply and their minds no longer function as before. So although the medicine is still of excellent color, it's still of excellent fragrance, they do not perceive it as good. And the father thinks to himself, my poor children, because of the poison in them, their minds are completely befuddled. Although they are happy to see me and ask me to cure them, they refuse to take the excellent medicine. I must now resort to some expedient means to induce them to take the medicine. So he says to them, you should know now that I am old and worn out, and the time of my death has come. I will leave this good medicine here. Having given these instructions, he then goes off to another land where he sends a messenger home to announce your father. At that time, the children, hearing that their father has deserted them and died, are filled with great grief and consternation and think to themselves, if our father was alive, he would have pity on us and see that we are protected. But now he has abandoned us and died in some other country far away, where shelterless orphans with no one to rely on. Constantly harboring such feelings of grief, they at last come to their senses and realize that it's the medicine that is in fact excellent in color and fragrance and flavor, and they take it and they are healed from the effects of the poison. Good men, the father, hearing that his children are cured, immediately returns home and appears to them once more. Good men, what is your opinion? Can anyone say that this skilled physician is guilty of lying. No world, only one. The Buddha said it is the same with me. It has been immeasurable, boundless, hundreds, thousands, and tens, thousands, and millions of Nayuta and Asamya kalpas since I attained Buddhahood for the sake of living beings. I employ the power of expedient means. In view of circumstances, no one, however, can say that I have been guilty of lies or falsehood. In order to save living beings, I enter as an expedient means. I appear to enter Nirvana, but in truth, I do not pass into what could be called extinction. I am always here, preaching the word. I am always here. But through my transcendental powers, I make it so that living beings in their befuddlement do not see me, even though I am close by. And so we know we are left with a true and powerful teaching. And although Buddha Master has millions of disciples, there was never a time that I flew out to California to see him. He did not take time for me to give me a one-on-one and talk with me about what I needed to do and to guide me. There's never a time that I picked up his teaching that they didn't impact me in a very, very profound way. That touched me in a living way, that caused me to change something about myself. There was never a time, and there is not a time now that I feel separated from him at all. It's like never born and never died. I don't know how to explain it, but just throughout space and time, everywhere. I picked a particular excerpt and I threw it in my announcement for starting the Buddha Master's lectures on Sundays at 5. And I announced it last week. I sent out the announcement. And it's, it's really auspicious and peculiar that I picked something out of his teaching, not knowing that a week later, Buddha Master was going to leave this world in human form. And it was the section when he was teaching us, and he said, who am I loyal to? Am I loyal to all of you? He said, I'm loyal to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions. That I fulfill perfect goodness. And it reminded me when Sakyamuni Buddha asked his disciples the same thing. He said, what do you think I think about you? He said, oh, we think you just love us so much, love you so much, love you so much. I tell you, when I'm down, Rob sings to me. He just calls and says, I love you so much. And he said, and he asked the question. He said, do you think those things? He said, but that's just the way we human are. He said, it's not really like that. It's something so much further than that. Because our love is so conditional. You know, we can love somebody, they hate them tomorrow, depending on what they did last night. You know, so our love, even though we talk about unconditional, it's very conditional. But it takes awakening to see. And then we can have a desire to move into the unconditional realm. And he said, and that is not like a place, like a physical place, but it's a a state beyond consciousness where there's no coming and no going. There's no in and there's no out. And so Buddha Master is as present with me right now as he was 2 weeks ago. But even in a more profound way, we were talking about in Soma and Prasita, Santi one day. And I said it was like, it's like more present because now we have the words planted, the seeds planted, and they're vibrating. And he didn't leave us without a charge. He did not leave us without mission. He made sure that he gave it to us before he left. And because we like the odd man out, because we're over here on the East Coast right now, he made sure that he did it publicly in front of everybody. And we actually feel even freer now because I like his physical personality wise. It's fearsome. It's fearsome. Like you like tiptoe in the door, and as soon as you get in front, you dive on the floor. That's all you can do, you know, because his presence is so powerful. Yeah, they have some good memories. So thank you so much for coming today. Always be encouraged and abounding in what is true, and it will carry over to the other shore. There will be nothing in this life that you encounter that you won't be able to. May you be well, happy, and peaceful in your heart.